Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm so thrilled to have as my guest today Dr. Cheryl Wilkie. Cheryl is the Chief Operating Officer at Farnum. She has led the premier substance abuse treatment programs at Farnum and Farnum North since 2008. Cheryl has been recognized by multiple community organizations, state offices, and legislative committees for excellence in business management and healthcare advocacy. Her ability to understand the human experience is evident in her leadership and her talent for empowering everyone to recognize their innate potential. Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so sorry you're not feeling your best, but as we said, we'll muddle through.
I'm just fine. We're going to be just fine.
Great, wonderful. So tell me a little bit about Farnum, but before that, I want to hear about what was your personal journey, what got you into this, into the work that you do today, and then we'll talk about how you came across the principles. But if we give a little bit of history first.
Sure. So I have been abstinent from alcohol and drugs for many, many years based on my history with it. I didn't do very well. I liked to drink and I liked to use drugs a lot. Mm-hmm. So it kind of put me in a position where I am today. Like all of it kind of happens for a reason is how I feel. With all the struggles I had, it really helped me to be kinder and gentler with other people, to understand that everybody wakes up when they wake up, that it's not a rush for some people and then for others, not so much. So with my own history of using lots of alcohol and drugs, it really put me in a position to say, I need to do something different with my life. I had really lost everything. I had lost my children. I had nothing. I was homeless. I had really kind of given up on knowing what to do. I don't think I ever really gave up. I can tell you that, even through all of it. Before I stopped drinking, really, which was my issue with that and cocaine, I never really gave up. I always knew that somehow there'd be a solution, but I had no clue what it was. Mm-hmm. So that kind of set up the journey for me. And eventually, I was able to abstain from alcohol and using drugs, and I was able to get my children back. I had a high school diploma. I went back and I got my master's degree, bachelor's, master's, and a doctorate in forensic psychology. And in my mind, I did a lot of that because of the passion I have, but I also learned what I needed to do to financially support. I have twin boys. They're 38 today. Wow. And I wanted to make sure that I was taking good care of them. And what I learned in the business is to just, the more degrees, the more people listen to you, mm-hmm. and also the more you get paid. Wow. So I started working in drug and alcohol treatment and kind of just rolled the wave, and eventually became the Chief Operating Officer of Farnum Center, which is a 140-bed facility in New Hampshire with all outpatient services for all different levels of care. We have Suboxone clinics, Vivitrol clinics, partial hospitalizations, intensive outpatients. So we have lots of services that we offer in New Hampshire. And I was working in the field, and when you do have the position to say, hey, I don't think what we're doing is working, people listen. Mm. And I had been searching for myself, even though I hadn't used alcohol and drugs in a very long time. I still didn't know what inner peace was. I didn't know how to find that place inside of me that was like, yes, this is it. I had done it all. I had, read all of the books, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer, loved them all, still mm-hmm. do. I had gone to Omega. I had gone to Kapala. I'd, just searching for something that was going to help me find some inner peace. And in that process, I went to therapy. And being a therapist, boy, I look back now and think, wow, I have what people would call, and I don't call it that, a traumatic history, right?
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of stuff. You don't live homeless on the streets and have all these things happen without what people would term trauma. So over my course of my own growth, it was like, I need to fix this trauma. I need to make it better. That's the only way I'm going to be free, because that's what I heard. That's what I learned in school. And it was really the wrong track, because I've learned today that, it was like picking a wound. I don't do that with a scab. I let it just scab over and I move on. Well, the brain, I feel, is the same thing, right? We need to stop picking at the brain and asking people to relive things that are so difficult for them the first time. And then the only reason they're bringing it back to memory is because we're asking them to. Now, that's not to say it won't come up from time to time for them. But to spend an hour with someone and say, let's talk about your childhood, or let's talk about what hasn't worked. And I don't think they say it with any malintention. I never did. I really believe that if you talked about whatever this traumatic issue was, it would help to minimize it.
Yeah.
It was a belief.
Yeah, you have an amazing story. I'm just so grateful that you're doing what you do, because it's through living through that yourself that that you have the compassion for everybody else that is struggling with any addiction or anything. And I'm right there with you. I had a childhood that was very different, and 30 years of therapy, and I loved my therapist. He helped me so much, but I was still on that search. There's still something missing. So, okay, so you were in therapy. So is that how you came across the principles? What was that next
No,
stage?
I actually, it's kind of a strange way about it. Probably 10 years prior, my son's probably 20 years ago, I had attended a facilitators training with Jack Pransky in New Hampshire. And then my son and Jack hit it off. So I used to drive my son, Kevin, to visit Jack, and they would chat. He was about 18, 20 years old then, just to help him with some of his issues. But I really didn't see it in the full light at that time. I only understood, I liked it, it was different, but I couldn't talk about it. I wasn't able to, and it took me a long time when we first started doing it at Farnum to actually speak about it. I would call people in. I would ask Joe Bailey to come. I would ask Barbara Patterson. Mara's been over. George and Linda came to New Hampshire. Everybody's come to New Hampshire, and it's helped me immensely to be able to use the language that I knew was in my heart but couldn't speak. So I happened to have had a book from years ago in my apartment, and I was reading it, and I had this moment where I realized that I was the only one torturing me. And it made me, it was just so big for me. I realized that the only pain I really had was me trying to figure out what was going to make me happy, what was going to make me work better. And then at the one moment I was kind of laughing, and the next minute I was crying, because I was laughing because it was like, oh my God, I've been doing this to myself all these years. I don't have to do this anymore. And then I was crying because, oh my God, I don't have to do this. And I was the one doing it. And it just gave me a little bit of relief that it wasn't coming from the outside world. The outside world had its own beliefs about what would make me better, but I was the one asking the outside world to give me answers. It wasn't like people were saying, this is what you need to do. I was looking and asking, and I've learned today with 3 principles, I don't need to ask other people what I need to do today. I need to sit with myself a little bit, and it comes to me, or it doesn't, and eventually it will. So in that moment when I realized that I didn't have to torture myself anymore, I was just relieved, and I sort of knew I found something I had never found before. And now I needed to go in and tell my staff we were changing everything we were doing.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine. Before you go into that, because that's going to be a fascinating story.
That was challenging.
I'm just curious, what was the book?
It was The Enlightened Gardener by Sid Banks.
Okay, so you went right to the source.
It was The Enlightened Gardener by Sid Banks. It was fabulous to read. And I did it in one night. It moved me immensely.
Wonderful. So, so what was it like when you went back into the center and started trying to share this understanding?
It wasn't a very hooray, hooray, let's do this kind of thing. It was very resistant, concerned, not understanding what I was trying to say, which totally makes sense to me because I really just didn't have the language to be able to articulate it to. I have 150 staff, and to be able, with multiple degrees and multiple disciplines, from doctors to nurses to clinicians, and I had to somehow try to bridge the gap. And it's been a process. I've been very fortunate. I really just picked up the books and asked people if they'd come to New Hampshire and speak. And amazingly, they always have said yes. And they've helped bring people along. Now, some people saw it really quickly and they really got on my bandwagon and started making curriculums and poster boards, and they were just as excited. And that was really helpful because you had some people that were in the trenches doing the work saying, this is so much better. Why are we doing anything else? And at first I didn't impose my seeing on them. I allowed them to continue to do the different collective treatment approaches. But then I realized that wasn't healthy for our clients. It was very confusing, and I just really wanted to move away from that. So we made an agreement that we would only do 3 principles, created our own curriculums, and then we had to have conversations with the insurance companies to stay true to ourselves. We didn't want to continue to write clinical plans that spoke to what the insurance company wanted when we wanted to teach about circular thinking. That's what we call it. If somebody has circular thinking and it's causing them to possibly want to use drugs or leave or things of that nature. So we started calling the insurance companies and inviting them in and doing presentations. It took a little while for all of us to come up with language ourselves that we could replace with some of the more clinical mental health language, and they were impressed with what we had to say. And we have been for over 5.5 years working with insurance companies, and we bill for all of our treatment, and they know exactly what we teach. So it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, I remember the presentation you gave at the London conference, and by the way, you're allowed to swear here if you want to.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying.
Whatever comes out, comes out. But some of the testimonials, speak a bit about some of the, I know there was the insurance company, you had somebody, and I know people within the community that were talking about, the changes they'd witnessed from Farnum. So can you share a bit about that?
Sure. So, there was a lot of wow, what is Farnum Center doing? Three steps instead of 12, like we were doing something, trying to cut the system. And the state got a little concerned, and the governor's office deployed his drug czar to us, and he sat with us and asked, what are you doing? What is this about? And, I think anyone who really gets this is so can passionately speak about it that it doesn't matter what you say. When they leave, they're so excited and high with you that they're just walking out the door going, this is the best stuff. And then they call you later and say, what was it? What are you doing? Can you send me something?
Yeah, it's like Sid talked about, it's the feeling. It's not the words, it's the feeling. So,
it is the feeling.
Yeah. So
we have a lot of supporters in the community because they see what the clients are walking away saying, right? They're constantly hearing about the approach. People will wait and not go to other facilities to get into our facility because they haven't been as successful. Now, I want to make it really clear that Farnum Center believes in the 12 steps, and I'd like to just say a little about that. I got sober and clean in AA, and what I really like about the 3 principles is that it allows people to make their own decisions. So if you go to an AA meeting and somebody says you need to write a 4th step, which is your whole life story, and share it with someone, which is a 5th step, and you're not comfortable with that, once you understand the three principles, it's not scary, right? When you first go into an AA meeting and you don't have a very good sense of yourself and you're asked to do things because you're afraid you'll drink or use drugs, you're kind of willing to do anything, and sometimes it puts you at risk because you're not checking in with yourself. So we're telling people, like, AA is great, you need the social aspect, you need the support, but you need to learn to be able to check in with yourself and stand up for things that don't work for you. Otherwise, you can put yourself into a position that's not comfortable and can have worse consequences than if you follow someone else's instructions.
Yeah, that's so important, I think, to share. I was coaching somebody recently who's been in the 12-step program for many, many years. And it was so lovely to see how they can blend so well together, that it wasn't contradicting each other.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's just like anything in life. I think that's the beauty, is when we understand that it's only us doing it, there's really nobody to blame, not even AA.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're going to make the decisions about what works for us and doesn't. It works beautifully together.
Yeah, that's great. And I also, you shared that, the generosity of the teachers that come and share at Farnum. I mean, it's the same on this show. I can't believe who says, everybody says yes. Everybody shows up. I think we have such a passion for this understanding and the relief that it has brought to us on our own personal level. We just want to keep sharing it.
I agree. Yeah. And there's just, it's just so many amazing people that have just really set a fire up here in New Hampshire. Yeah. It really is we're constantly getting calls to ask to start. We have health realization meetings, which is our three principal meetings. Throughout the week, we have AA or HR, we call it. So you can go to either or, and people around the state are setting up HR meetings all over the state that are peer run for this purpose. And it's just nice to watch everybody be willing and open to see that there is an outside world, and it's beautiful, and it can appear difficult, but it doesn't last long, and it's really you have control. I really love that about Sid. I never met Sid, never knew him, but I've never been a fan of gurus, and I really believe that he did a nice job of making sure he didn't become one.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I have guru aversion as well, and I love that, and even all the sort of first generation teachers that there's such a gentleness and a kindness and a humility, and we're all in it together, and we're all just sharing what we know, what we see.
That's right. There's
no hierarchies. It's beautiful. Exactly, because I have my sort of I've been around enough of it to know that I can, I have a good sense of when things are going down the wrong path, or a path that I'm not comfortable with.
Right.
So tell us about some of and I love that you said you noticed that, it took me a long time to understand. I mean, I had the yeah buts. Yeah, but this doesn't apply. I was going through a very sort of a lot in my life at the time. Well, whatever. Anyway, I felt that it took me a longer time to fully grasp it. And I love that, because now it gives me the patience with other people that I'm coaching to just hang in there, So tell me about some of the different scenarios that you've witnessed yourself, say some of the clients that have seen it or not seen it, or taken
Sure.
a while.
I'll start with my staff, because I find that just fascinating to me, because what we do is we have trainings every single month. We've worked it out now. It's about 2 to 4 hours a month where everybody's in. They're really not. Well, they are trainings, but they're more of a dialogue about the three principles, and they happen throughout all of the facilities. We have 5 facilities in New Hampshire, and during that time, everybody's included. There is, again, the hierarchy doesn't exist, right? Whether you're at the front desk, whether you're in housekeeping or maintenance, you're talking, you need to have I believe it would be nice for them to not have to suffer in their own heads and understand this. So I have everybody participate. And then of course, the upside to that is when they're dealing with clients, even if the clients are, talking to them about what they need or don't need, it's really nice to watch the interaction. So we have these trainings that happen on a regular basis with the staff, and we've been doing that for years. I think it's really important to be consistent. It's one thing to bring in a trainer for a 2-day or 3-day event, and Barbara Patterson's kind of our person, our go-to person. She's in New Hampshire every 3 to 4 months doing trainings with people. I think I just lost my train of thought.
We were saying you were talking about the staff and the changes
Right.
you've seen in them.
And yeah, so having people in the building to train for 2 or 3 days is fabulous. But if you don't, keep that going, there's just not a place for everybody to ask questions and conversate. And when you lay down something like this and say, this is what we're going to do, this is our approach, I really feel strongly it's our responsibility as the management team to make sure that they get the time to learn this and spend time on this. So we watch videos, we have dialogues. And many staff that have been with me for many years haven't seen it and have done their best teaching from videos. But internally, this one story, I have a staff member who was extremely AANA. She ran the women's unit, which is where my office is. I live on that unit. And I would see AANA books on the unit. So I would go and I would take all the books and I would put them back in my office. And then I'd notice them back out on the unit and think, oh, I don't know. I'd just go get them again. And I'd put out, the books we were using then were The Enlightened Gardener and, some other books. And I put them back out. Well, about 4 or 5 years, we didn't do that for 4 or 5 years. After a couple months, I had a chat with her and we pulled the books. But about 4 years into it, she said, she was sitting in a meeting and she just had this, oh my God moment where she said, I know what you are all talking about. This is the first time I've been able to see it. And she was so excited. The passion was so real and genuine. And I could see everything changing for her. Now she's been promoted. She's running one of the buildings. And this is somebody who, it just took longer. Yeah. And I like what you said, Della, that you understand that because it was the Yabots for you. And maybe I have no idea, 10 years prior, I did that to Jack, I'm sure. And then this, time came about and I was like, oh my God, the book happened. Mm-hmm. But I think making that space for people who don't, whenever you're looking at making a big change, like this was a big change and it had to be slow and it had to be gentle, like we'd want anybody to be. Yeah. And the things that have happened, I have clients on a regular basis say to me, why didn't anyone ever tell us about this? I've never been to a drug and alcohol rehab that understands this or talks about this. Why are they think it's a conspiracy. I have to assure them it's not a conspiracy. They're not trying to keep you sick. They just don't know it. If they understood it and knew it, they'd be teaching it. Yeah. Because the clients have these moments where, they can be in the building for like the first week and they'll be like, I don't understand this. And I'll say, how long have you been here? And they'll say 3-4 days. I'm like, talk to me in about a week. Mm-hmm. Week later, I can't even tell you. I don't know if it's because they're just so open-minded because they have struggled and they need, in that moment, they're just open to any idea that will help them not live the way they were living, that they catch it so much faster than the staff.
I was just talking with somebody this morning about that sometimes it's the really bottoming out, the sort of the giving up, the sort of, or not the letting go of control, of just knowing that what you've been doing hasn't been working. So exactly. The openness to something else. So where do you, it sounds like it's wonderful and it's happening in New Hampshire. What about the rest of the country? Is there a way to help other treatment centers or a program? You say you wrote a curriculum I live here in California and I live in Malibu and we have 50 treatment centers, I think, a minimum. In Malibu. And I'm just thinking, how beneficial this would be in those treatment centers.
Yes, that is some of the work that I've been doing quite a bit. Actually, Malibu has a program that I've been Skyping and Zooming with and sharing clinical notes as well as curriculum. So I've been doing that with some programs in London. Now, obviously, that's not the best way to try to get this out there. So what I am doing, when I was in London, I met up with Jean Catherine from the Global 3P Global Research Program.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yes, yeah.
And so we enrolled in a research project with them about 2.5 months ago.
Wonderful.
And the goal for, I think, all of us, and I am doing Zoom with one of the researchers is in London and one is here, is to try to get the research data together that would allow us to put this on the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration, SAMHSA's evidence-based programs.
Yeah.
This is not considered an evidence-based program, which is what all clinicians are looking for. If we named this evidence-based, everybody would be trying to figure out how to do this. Because it's not evidence-based, it leaves people nervous and scared. So having a research project with the different clinics, they were looking at one in Colorado, us, and I'm pretty sure Gulf Breeze in Florida, to try to gather this research so that we have the data to do the peer review and get it onto the website, the federal website for mental health and substance abuse.
Yeah. I mean, it's so incredible that what you've done in New Hampshire and the fact that the insurance companies are on board. I mean, that's a huge endeavor right there. And it would be amazing if we could. I'm familiar with the treatment center in Malibu that is, implementing it. But like I say, one out of, I think last count maybe 5 years ago was 52. So, this is so much of a need for it. That
would be amazing to get it just evidence-based, and it's really it's not that hard to do. It's gathering the research, and then we've already applied for the ethics boards and things of that nature. So I'm pretty confident it's going to happen. Of course, I would have liked that a little quicker, but it'll probably take about 6 to 9 months. But there already has been some peer research done. So that we're ahead of the game, where Jack Pransky and some others, I can't think of who right now, but have done some peer review writings, and we will be able to use some of that data to try to help move this into everybody's hands. Yeah. It would be if they chose.
No, definitely. Well, I just want to thank you so much. It's fascinating, and you should write a book. Is that on your agenda? Exactly. I mean, it's such an inspirational story. So I would love to read it. Okay.
Oh, someday. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. And thank you for what you do. I really appreciate how you take the time and you put this out for everybody, because people don't get to see it. They don't get to hear it. And I see your show on my social media every single week, and they're fabulous. And I really appreciate you and everything you do for all of us, because it is so needed. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my, like you say, when we come across this, all we want to do is share.
Yes.
Because it's so important. So anyway, thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.